Welcome back, everyone, to the Barely News Crew, and I'm your host here, as always, Alexis. I'm joined here by Peter Martinez, who else but Peter, and we're going to discuss a Marvel project combination of a spoiler review. Captain America Civil War opened in theaters very recently, in fact, just last week. We all had the chance to see it, some more than others. And we all loved it just the same. And we're going to dive deep into spoilers here. That's why it's called a spoiler review, just in case some of you were confused, okay? This is a spoiler review, as in Superman dies kind of spoiler. This is a interesting mix of a Captain America, Avengers, Iron Man movie all thrown into one.
When they announced it, it got a lot of people excited. It was right after the whole Batman vs Superman thing was announced. Yeah. And it was just like, wow, like, how are they going to adapt it? Because a Captain America film, you have to include all these Avengers, these superheroes, and give them a good, interesting reason for why they're fighting, and also introduce two new characters, Black Panther and Spider-Man. And, you know, how are they going to jumble everything? And then they also announced, oh, they got Baron Zemo in it as a villain. And it's like, oh my God. How's this all gonna work?
Not only did you have to juggle all of these different characters, but you had to make sure that this at heart was still about Tony and Cap's struggle.
Yes. On every aspect that had a concern, you know, I walked out of the film going, they nailed it. Every single one.
As if you needed to be concerned.
Hey, there was reason for some concern.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Whatever. You know, first of all, which I do feel is a real concern, is the movie feeling too bloated. Why are they in here? How did they get in here? You know, why would they choose this side over the other side? And for each and every one of them, they gave a good enough reason where I'm like, okay, I believe that.
Right.
It's believable. And for most of them, they gave them a nice little arc. They exceeded my expectations as far as all of the characters working. This is the first one where it's like, no, you gotta do your homework a little bit. And at this point, it's like it's the third of its own Captain America trilogy, but it's also the 13th of the Marvel Universe, and it's also a follow-up to Avengers 2. And it's like, you know, at this point, it's like, no, you need to watch one other movie or something. You know, you can't just jump into this cold. I still think you can have a good time, but you won't have nearly as much of the emotional impact as you would if you had been following
That's
along.
the catch here, because I think if you walk into this, I think the film itself will grab you, but it won't grab you not nearly as much as it would have if you were already invested with these characters. For me, the heart of this movie is the internal struggle between Tony and Cap. How brilliantly they managed that, and how they set that up, and how they managed to make us believe all of the Avengers and where they fall in line. And almost immediately you see the divide between Tony and Cap. You understand their points, but I think what really solidifies their positions and being passionate about them are two particular scenes. With Tony, with that woman who was the mother of the kid who was killed in Sokovia, confronted him, the impact that she left on him. And then also with Cap, when Peggy died, and when Sharon was giving the eulogy, and just kind of describing who Peggy was and what she would do in a situation like this. Compromise where you can, but where you can't, don't. And I just love how they set up those two sides, and you kind of like, at that point, you're fucking torn. Because like, you get why these people are in this position, and yet you are kind of struggling like, you guys are kind of right, both of you, and I don't know where to go, because...
See, the key to making a film like this work is that you care about all the people that are in the Civil War. You care about both sides, so you're torn when you see these two go up against each other. As cool as it might seem, you know, it's always going to be more of the emotional struggle that's really interesting than so much the fight scenes.
They're divided, and then it comes to a confrontation when you have the airport hangar scene, which we'll get to later, when they have their two different sides. When Tony realizes that he's been played by Zemo, he goes off in search of Cap by himself to make amends, so to speak. And when we have that very, very clever plot twist, which we'll get to in just a bit, we get one, I would probably say, in my view, probably the most epic confrontation in a comic book movie, or one of the most confrontational and emotional action sequences that we've seen in film in a long, long time.
It really worked because they laid the groundwork. You know, the movie opens up with the Winter Soldier going off and getting something. You see like, oh, what is this? So you think, okay, keep that in the back of my head. that's gonna come into play later on in the film.
Right.
This Zemo guy going around, and you have no idea what he really wants or why he's doing it. He keeps asking about that same mission, so you're like, okay, it has something to do with him. And then he says like, oh, I wasn't the only Winter Soldier. They really sell it on, this is the main issue in the film. It's that they have other Winter Soldiers and he's gonna go and use them to, you know, topple governments or whatever. Because they even have a whole flashback sequence setting them up and doing that. And in another film, probably wouldn't do that. They would, you just be like, oh, is it? It would have you questioning, is it really that?
They really wanted to make you sell it. This was
like that was where everything was going. At the end, when you realize, like, no, you think I want more of you? Like, no, I want to see you guys tear each other apart.
He wants to take down an empire, and that he did. They played the goddamn tape of his parents being killed, like brutally murdered. Like, holy fuck, man.
It's really tragic in all sides because everyone that takes place in it, you know, from Iron Man, Cap, Bucky, Howard, and his wife, you care about all of them.
Right, they all know each other. That's the thing, and for all of that to play out in front of Tony's eyes.
It's really good writing all around. That's the way I would say. They really found a way to just squeeze a lot of emotion and characterization in a good 2.5-hour film that I didn't think you could. Without making it feel like, oh, that's unnecessary, you could have taken that out, or that went on too long, that was bloated, we needed more of this. Like, that's some of the normal concerns I
have in a movie.
Expected that was going to happen, but I really didn't have that with this film. Everything really...
It's like, once again, you write this movie down on paper, it should have been a disaster. And it wasn't. Like, watching it back the second time, there's not a single second of that movie I would cut out. Not a single second.
Honestly, thinking about it, I can't think of one. Maybe a little, like I said, nitpicks. Nitpicks here and there, like, oh, change that. That blue is off. But, you know, little things where you would change. But largely, it's a great film, and they really knocked it out of the park in every single area.
And then, of course, we have the clash. That amazing fight sequence with Winter Soldier, Iron Man, and Captain America. And it really kicks into high gear when Tony TKOs the Winter Soldier by completely vaporizing his metal arm. And then when you have Cap and Iron Man going at each other, when you have Iron Man zapping Captain America on the shield, that famous image
that Civil War
from the
image.
comics, and then it kicks it up another notch with like Friday telling Tony, it's like, you can't beat him hand to hand, or you can't beat him hand to hand, whatever, you know, that Scottish accent. It's Merida. It really is. And when he gets the upper hand, and then it's like, I can do this all day, like harking back to the original Captain America movie, it gets me moving, like watching that. And when you see Cap just beating the shit out of Tony with that shield, and once he like beats that like mask off,
his helmet.
It's like, holy shit, is he gonna fucking kill him? It's like, god damn it. And the movie is so intoxicating, it makes you believe for half a second that he'll actually kill Tony.
Well, I think you believe it because Tony for half a second believes it. Because he's like, he throws it up. And there isn't a hesitation in any of their punches. You know, it's not...
I saw several people jump and prepare themselves for that to happen. They believed it as much.
How terrible would that be? Like, he decapitates.
Okay, that's not funny. That's not funny.
Like, it just goes super dark in the end. Kids there like, oh my god, Captain America killed Iron Man. He cut his head off.
Black Panther, holy crap.
I loved him. I thought he was portrayed perfectly. His father dies in the very beginning, and he believes it was the Winter Soldier. So the entire time, his whole thing is, I'm gonna hunt him down. I'm gonna kill him for killing my father. And at the end, you know, he realizes, I almost killed the wrong guy. You know, this Zemo guy, you know, vengeance. He says vengeance has consumed you. Vengeance is consuming them. You know, talking about Cap and Iron Man.
So, Peter, Spider-Man.
Perfect.
How many times?
I can't keep saying perfect, but
look, I want to look, Spider-Man. God, you were right. God, you were right.
God.
We'll give him credit, okay?
Okay.
He is a creep. Okay.
Yes.
Spider-Man being in the MCU sensational. Tom Holland, perfect. In this movie, outstanding. Any more adjectives?
Yeah, I know. I won't say he's like perfect yet. You still, he's like the Spider-Man. You still let him have his own film first.
Right.
30 minutes is a pretty short time to judge it completely on. But in those short 30 minutes, if that's any sign of the way his solo film is gonna be, I'm there first in line. I can't wait, and he will be like the Spider-Man. The big thing that everyone came out of saying was like, oh, that airport scene though, it's amazing, greatest action scene in a comic book movie ever. Da 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 da. On and on and on. And it was, yeah. When they're talking about the biggest scene from that film, they usually say, oh, it's either Spider-Man or Ant-Man. But I feel every character had a chance to shine, and that's why everyone's saying like, wow, this action scene was so amazing. He's even like someone like Hawkeye. Like, I loved Hawkeye in that fight scene. Ant-Man as Giant Man was, flinging off War Machine, and Falcon was flying around him, and Spider-Man was wrapping around, and then at his foot, Black Panther was taking on Hawkeye. And I was like, this is the shit right here. Like,
what did you make of Black Widow's turn?
You really understand, like, she was on Tony's side because she said, we have made mistakes, and hopefully this will keep us together, and it'll work out. But the entire time, she's like, every time it's taking a step too far, she's like, no, like, we can't do this, and at the end, she's like, you really see, she's like, you're not gonna stop, are you? And he's like, no. And she says, like, if this fighting keeps going, it's gonna get a lot worse. So that's why she sort of made a turn and was like, okay, like, go, Cap. You could have really made her come off bad.
Right.
And like, a lot of people are like, oh, like, what's her problem? Like, screw her. Like, she's playing both sides. Did Julio feel that way?
Yeah. He called her a traitor.
No.
You know why? Because he didn't see the Winter Soldier.
He doesn't understand.
Yeah.
No,
What's
but
wrong with you, Julio?
It's because he was Team Iron Man.
Team Iron Man or Team Cap?
Like, I understand Iron Man. Like,
Yes.
you really understand.
I understand him.
And so I feel bad for him. So even though I was like I was Team Cap right here and Team Iron Man right here, it was brought more like this. It's still a little more Cap, but I became a lot more understanding.
Right. It became crystal clear to me. There's no competition. It's Team Cap. Even Tony was like disgusted with the fact that his friends were being muzzled and put in straitjackets. These are people who saved people in the past. These are Avengers put on a fucking raft. When you have General Ross saying to him, you're lucky you're not in one of these cages too, when he was the one trying to help him the entire time. He was the one that instigated this for the Avengers. It doesn't work. That Cap was right in my eyes, because whoever the UN is, whoever runs it, governments have agendas, and they always change, and they have to obey sovereign border lines or whatever. And
you can't argue though, they did blow up an airport.
Fuck the airport. Fuck the airport. This movie blew up the Avengers.
Even though we never really got to touch on the music was really good.
I loved it.
It was really good.
Loved it.
They really had certain really awesome cues, and then at the end when it was Cap versus, they had like really intense like.
Right. I've been listening to the soundtrack. Like,
it's really good music.
Days, yeah. A lot of people would consider Zemo to be a negative. I don't. As a villain, I mean, I don't consider him a villain. I consider him an antagonist more than anything. He's not that mustache twirly villain or the classic Marvel villain, but you have to consider he's probably the most effective villain out of any of these movies. Well, this has been our spoilers review for Captain America Civil War. I want to thank Peter. Thank you guys for watching. I'm your host here as always, Alexis, and remember, you're always on the place for all things movie news and reviews, which is the Barely News Crew.